Hello and welcome to episode 50 of the Film Angle. My name is Kris.
And I'm Alex.
Is this a big one? Should we say this is a big episode? I mean, I I didn't know we were going to get this far.
I know. It's kind of big for two reasons, isn't it? It's big because it's our 50th episode, but it's also big because we haven't done one of these for a couple of weeks. It's a bit of a
Yeah.
comeback episode at the same time. We as listeners will probably be aware because they are refreshing our feed very often.
I can't tell if you're being sarcastic or not.
Lots of people have reached out to me. Alex, where's the new episode of the Film Angle? Alex, where's the 50th episode of the Film Angle?
Did you get those people stopping you on the street like me as well?
Yes,
The bus driver, he was saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, when's the new episode?"
Yeah. People talking about how they're going to strike, and the country doesn't need another strike, but well, maybe it does. It does actually. I like strikes.
You like strike? Yeah, you're. Well, that's why you liked Athena so much. That's like your thing for some reason is anarchy and strikes and rebellions.
Whilst I sit behind my computer desk.
You've got a bit of a problem there. We are trudging in on our quest to complete the BFI Sight and Sound list top 100 films of all time. So far we've had doomed romances, heroic prison escapes, Japanese samurai, Italian 19th century ballroom parties. We've seen a lot lately. Today, though, we will be discussing Jean-Luc Godard's highly influential and revered French New Wave film, romantic drama 1965's Pierrot Le Fou, as well as Victor Erice's Spanish drama The Spirit of the Beehive. But before we get to that, we have to talk about a film that was just released in the UK, despite being released in the States many months ago. It's Ty West's much anticipated second entry into now what is proclaimed as the X trilogy. It's the new horror film starring Mia Goth, Pearl.
Yeah, so Pearl is the sequel to Ty West's X, and essentially he filmed it immediately after, or elements of it during the production of X, right?
Yeah, it seems like it was shot back to back because whenever the credits rolled, whenever I went to see X originally on the big screen, at the end of the credits was a trailer for Pearl. So they had to be shot, and they were released the same year. I know Mia Goth and Ty West kind of stayed together when they were shooting X, and then they co-wrote the script whilst filming it. So then I think they wanted to shoot it straight away so that they could use the same locations.
Yeah, I don't think Mia Goth had writing credits on X though, right? Am I right in thinking that?
No, but she did on Pearl. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I when that popped up in the credits at the start, I was thinking, Mia Goth wrote this, which makes sense. Her character is the forefront of this film, whereas in X, she was very much a main character, but she wasn't. Well, she was playing two characters essentially, and there was an ensemble cast, and it was much more of a slasher film. Where I would say this film is a different beast, and you can watch it on its own merits. I would say without even having to see X.
You can, yes, you can. I would agree, but I think it, like anything that's inspired by anything, it is amplified the enjoyment whenever you've seen X, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I just mean like it is like I don't know if you found this, but I just found it a very different beast to X.
Sure.
It was more about the kind of descent into madness, and then the completely unhinged performance from Mia Goth, which is absolutely brilliant, and obviously the standout of the film. And very much a focal point of the film as well. It seems to be a film that's built around her insane performance.
Oh yeah, for sure. What I think makes it fun if you've seen X is because what X was trying to do not only be a really good slasher sort of throwback horror movie, but it was also a genre play. It was also trying to be a homage to like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It looked like an old grainy movie, and this time we are shifting genres again. We're going back to the golden age of Hollywood. And this movie looks like The Wizard of Oz at some time. At some points, it's got that very saturated artificiality to it, which a lot of like big golden age Hollywood musicals had. So I think that's fun if you're somebody who's a fan of genre and you're just seeing Ty West sort of shift into these different like forms, and also that are evoked by the time period they're set in. I think you're going to get more out of it if you've seen X. That's what I'm saying. But yeah, no, I think Mia Goth, this is like her vehicle. This is her platform for her to really come to the public forefront and really become a household name, because she's always been great. She's never been a principal lead on anything before, although her talent has always been, she's always been a presence that always stood out in a movie, whether that was, 2018 Suspiria, or the Nymphomaniac series. She's a presence on screen. There's no doubt. There's nobody like her.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's got a very kind of specific craziness that I don't think has kind of been seen before. And like you said, this film was released late last year in the States. We obviously haven't gotten it until now, which is a shame because all I've seen is clips from this film, memes,
I know.
audio clips, the whole lot. A
The
lot of
final shot of the movie is
the final shot of the movie. Yeah. A lot of it is something we've seen, and then we've also seen trailers for, by the time this recording comes out, it'll be out, Infinity Pool, which also has a very deranged performance from Mia Goth.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's very childlike, but extremely chilling at the same time. It's a unique spin on kind of scary crazy.
You're definitely right. I think there is a childlike quality, like a naivety to her, and that kind of resonates from it's off screen and on screen. She has this sort of quality about her, but there's this also underlying intelligence and disturbing curiosity, and I think that's the thing that comes to the forefront here, especially when you're dealing with a time period that this is set in, 1918, where everybody buries those sort of feelings down, and this is kind of like it's all coming to the forefront. There's a really interesting moment towards the end of the movie where she has this monologue sing, which is super impressive. I think it feels like it goes on for about 5 minutes, and she shifts into about 10 different gears of emotion, and she basically spills the beans more than anyone's ever spilled the beans before. She kind of lets the other character in the scene know everything that's kind of been going on between her and the audience that we know, and a little bit more. But yeah, I think if we go into the plot a little bit, like I said, it is set during 1918. It's during the influenza pandemic, so it's quite interesting. Everybody is wearing masks in this movie, and whenever
a lot of parallels to our own life not so long ago.
Sure. Do you think that was completely intentional, or that was circumstantial, like they actually did have to wear masks on set when there were larger ensemble moments?
There's got to be an element of that because it is a pandemic film, isn't it? It was shot during the pandemic. I was reading on Wikipedia. I don't know how true it can be because it is on Wikipedia, that Ty West was actually working on the production of Avatar: Way of Water, and it was
Right,
in
okay.
between breaks on that film that they made these films, or
Sure.
these two films. So I imagine that, if you're writing and directing within that time period, it's got to be something that potentially is capturing you. And we didn't know what the world was going to be like. The time of release, we could still all be wearing masks and panicking about COVID. And obviously, there's an element of that, but it's very much pushed to the side at the moment. So I think Ty West knew what he was doing, writing those scenes in.
I think it's so interesting though, like how that mass event in our lives is really just resonated onto the films we watch. It really just proves how powerful a tool cinema is, that no matter what decade or genre that you're watching, there's always a sprinkle of our own DNA within any film that kind of reflects the time period that we're in.
Yeah. I know I had a little bit of a shock even when like Knives Out referenced the pandemic and had people in masks. The Glass Onion Knives Out. Yeah, I was just like, oh, it's real life.
Yeah, it's only real to us whenever it's depicted in a fictional setting. That's whenever it hits home. But yeah, Pearl is a young woman. She's living on a farm with her mother and really really poorly father. In fact, he's completely infirm and paralyzed. Her husband Hard is serving in World War One at the minute. She doesn't know if he's alive still. He hasn't written back. He hasn't written back in any of her letters recently. So she is kind of left on the lurch. Her mother, due to their circumstances, really tries to push onto Pearl that, we got to live a simple life here. We're living during a pandemic. We need to keep ourselves to ourselves. We need to live in a humble existence to get by. Pearl really isn't having any of that. She's having flights of fancy. She has these dreams of being a chorus girl, much to her mother's disapproval. But she also has showing these sort of signs of being completely disturbed. There's something underneath the surface that is completely, you can't put your finger on what it is, but there's something not right with this young woman, and that is shown pretty early whenever she sticks a pitchfork right into a goose for no reason at all. After being completely lovely to all the other animals she tends to in the barn, it really tells you what we're in for.
Almost Disney lovely to the
Oh,
animals in the barn before this moment. But
oh, absolutely.
obviously, that's where we have, the hindsight of X, knowing of, you know what this character becomes.
Sure. And I think, I love, I can't tell if I like this more than X because they're just completely different beasts. But I
Mm,
was completely locked into this movie in its simplicity. It is really really bare bones. I mean, actually, how it manages to sustain an hour and 40 minutes is pretty interesting because there's not, when you go back over the movie in your head, there's actually not that many set pieces going on in this film.
no,
Um, she really, it just shows you how much shit she can carry it. I think
yeah,
the cinematography is really beautiful. I think obviously Ty West is obviously oversaturating the images to make it look, completely. You got blue skies and golden hay bales and green grass everywhere. But you've also got this technicolor aspect. So whenever she hones this red dress towards the end of the movie, it looks completely like it's so sharp on the screen. It looks like it's like an attack on you before anything really goes downhill. Um, I love that choice. The score is one of the things that really stuck with me when I was watching this in the cinema. You just got these really like soaring strings going out throughout the whole film. Whenever I actually looked to my left for a moment, just to kind of like listen to the music by itself during one of the scenes, and I was like, right, I could literally be watching a Hitchcock movie right now.
mm,
It sounded like, a Rear Window esque score. It was very like very ominous but very beautiful at the same time. I don't know. I thought it was a really interesting time. I can't wait to see what he does next time with Maxine, which is coming out
yeah,
this year too. So
yeah. That's going to be really interesting, or at least we hope it comes out in the UK
yeah, we'll probably
this year.
we'll be talking to you this time next year again. Yeah,
Because Maxine it looks very much like a '90s
it's a it's
VHS.
yeah, it's set in the 80s, I think. Yeah.
Oh, is it '80s? Is it
Mhm.
okay?
And
Which
we're following Maxine, who is the Mia Goth character in the first movie in X, and it's like her a couple of years later, and she's trying to make it big in Hollywood.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, how does
Mm.
this connect? That would make sense. So it's Mia Goth's character, the younger character in X
In the first movie, yeah,
in the first movie. Okay, I see how these are all connecting now. Gotcha. No, I'm really interested. X and Pearl have both been great. I really enjoyed them, and they've hooked me in with their premise. They've hooked me in with their performances, and yeah, I think Mia Goth is very in right now, and I'm sure she'll deliver the unhinged goods uh, in Maxine.
absolutely. Alex, it's not the only film that you saw in the cinema, though, right?
No, I've seen a couple of films in the cinema recently. In our little break, a film that's kind of seemed to have quite a big marketing presence, and then kind of came and went. And don't think anybody's talking about it too much, but it was 65, the Adam Driver versus Dinosaurs movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a strange one because I don't know about you, Chris, but like 65 posters were everywhere where I live.
Right, okay. I was. actually in Bristol the other week because my flight got cancelled,
I know, you
and
didn't even call me.
because I'm too good. I'm too good of a friend. I
You
didn't
didn't
want to
even call me, man.
I didn't want to trouble you. It was our problem. We had to deal with
I
it.
wanted
That's
to
how
be
I saw
troubled.
it. Well, I'll have you in mind next time when it happens.
Yeah.
Um, so basically, we got snowed in. We got our flights got cancelled, so we had to roam Bristol to go to our hotel. So we got the bus. When I was on the bus, I couldn't help but look out the window because there was nothing else to do. Every single bus stop had a 65 poster, bar none. Every single bus stop in Bristol. So
That's what I'm saying. It was everywhere. And then I don't know about you, but the film released and it was in the top of my mind because I love Adam Driver and I knew I wanted to see Adam Driver fight dinosaurs. Like
oh, you're
I
in
was
good
into that.
company. Yeah,
But, it came. I didn't really hear about reviews for it. And then there's some there's like one late night showing at the cinema at the moment.
sure.
Like, there's not a lot. It's kind of really dropped off the radar, which is weird because I won't go too much into it because obviously you haven't seen it yet, Chris. But it's a very fine film. I didn't know that I wanted to see Adam Driver fight dinosaurs. Turns out I did want to see that, and turns out this film does it very well for a long time, and for a very strange reason, which I don't understand. Or like the reason I don't understand is, and that's why it's strange. Jurassic Park has had is the dinosaur movie. There are no other dinosaur movies. As far as I'm aware, dinosaurs aren't copyrighted. Why is Jurassic Park the only dinosaur movie out there? I don't get it. So it was good. It was refreshing to see a big budget dinosaur movie that wasn't Jurassic Park. And the premise is absolutely ridiculous, but so smart at the same time. A crash. A spaceship crashes on an unknown planet. By the way, this is revealed very early on in the film.
Oh, I know where this is
It's
going.
through
Yeah.
text, but in the trailer, it blew my mind. You see a spaceship crash on an unknown planet. Adam Driver and a young girl are the only survivors, and there's something on this planet. Turns out it's freaking dinosaurs, man, and we're on Earth 65 million years ago. So dumb, but really, really smart. I was very into that. Now, the film has a lot of text at the start to let you know what's going on, and I think it comes up a couple of times. Like, this is the premise.
I'm not surprised because the thing that really was a red flag for me before reading about this film was that it's like 93 minutes long, and like typically in Hollywood today, a movie like this where you crash land on a planet and fight dinosaurs and you're Adam Driver should be 2.5 hours long. That showed to me that there wasn't a lot of confidence in this
No,
film.
you're wrong. You're wrong, Chris. There's no fat on this. It is a lean steak, and it is better for it.
It's almost like a B movie, like a modern B movie.
You crash land on Earth within 10 minutes, and then that's it. You're in the I need to get from A to B with this girl. This dinosaur's in the way for the 90 minutes remaining. On top of that, there's an asteroid coming to hit Earth.
Right.
I wonder which one that is. So brilliant. It's a ticking
Spoiler
clock
alert.
film at the same time. Like it's brilliant. Like, it's stupid, but it's brilliant. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not breaking the wheel with these kinds of movies. It doesn't do anything particularly special with its characters. It's very much like I said, A to B, dinosaurs in the way, couple of issues. Oh, I've dislocated my shoulder now. What am I going to do? All that kind of stuff. It doesn't blow your mind, but it is a fine dinosaur movie that just so happens to star one of the greatest actors around right now.
He is in a certain period at the minute.
That's not true. That's not true.
Not a bad period. He is in a very experimental period.
Yeah,
He's having his little Robert De Niro sort of mini era at the minute. But
one dinosaur movie. Come on, come on. Look, for me, it's scratched an itch I didn't know I needed scratching. If you are going to go see it in the cinemas, then definitely go to the late night showings. I forgot that dinosaurs are so big with kids. Kids love dinosaurs.
and it's like
Doesn't
12A,
make sense.
right?
It's a 12A as well. So I went like Saturday daytime. Audience was horrible. Kids talking, running around the place. Just the worst. So yeah, if there's late night showings, go to those.
Sure.
Or wait until it's on stream, and it's a perfectly serviceable streaming film as well. So that's 65. I also saw Shazam: Fury of the Gods.
All right. Okay.
I kind of like the first Shazam film. I thought it's nice. I really like all the family stuff in it. I like the fact that this kid has been abandoned by his mum, and when he finds his
You
mum,
like that?
I just like it was different. It was like a different origin story. Like,
No, I mean you like
to
abandonment.
uh, no, maybe that's why I like the film because it's about come together in the strangest times
Sure.
when those who are supposed to love and care for you are not there for you. And I don't know. I just appreciated the kind of it almost felt kind of Spielbergian, whereas dealing with some like pretty deep issues on a child surface level, and
Sure.
I appreciated that. So I wanted to give Shazam: Fury of the Gods the benefit of the doubt, and I mean I could say it's fine, like 65, it's fine, but it's like less fine than 65. It's it's a superhero movie that loses a lot of the family stuff. Unfortunately, it has hints of it, but it is just a big old action blur, and the action blur is okay, but it kind of bored me, and
Mm,
it just kind of made me worried for the state of superhero films right now. When you have Ant Man and you have Shazam: Fury of the Gods coming out, and they're not really doing anything creative or trying to do anything interesting. I know, obviously, Ant Man tried to do different to its predecessors in terms of scale and scope. Um,
yeah.
but in terms of story, these things aren't hitting me, and Shazam: Fury of the Gods didn't hit me either. Seems like it was a film that was maybe ruined by the pandemic. The kids we saw in the first film are now adults and or young adults, and the kind of change between Billy into Shazam, who's played by Zachary Levi. Billy's pretty much 18 now, or he's on the verge of 18, I think, in the film. The transition isn't as interesting because Billy's not as childish as he was, but Zachary Levi
Yeah.
still plays it as if it's a child
That's the
in a
thing.
superhero's body, and it feels like two very different characters. Whereas in the first film, you kind of bought it.
That's really interesting, actually. I mean, I'm with you. I had, I was pretty solid on the first film. I enjoyed it. And I think many people enjoyed it because it was essentially, it was like Tom Hanks big, but
Yeah,
in a superhero sort of skin. I think that's probably what they're struggling with here is that they have to age the character, but they can't lose the appeal of the first movie. Or, that's what the Zachary thing is all, it's all about. That's what we're trying to sell to the audience. And it's interesting to see that that's lost here because that's kind of all Shazam had kind of going for it was its family dynamic and its humor. And I
yeah,
think all the fighting stuff and all the mythical sort of all the prophecy things that were going on in the first movie were kind of whatever MacGuffins that kind of were just really a foundation for whatever else was going on that was smaller in the story that was more interesting.
yeah. It
So
was the big story in the first film of like him having to fight the guy who also wants the power,
sure,
and
yeah,
that's the least interesting part of the film.
yeah,
But thankfully, it is kind of second to just having fun with these characters and them kind of figuring out how to be a superhero or the childlike wonder of having these powers.
mhm.
Whereas that is second to the main story in this film, which is like these kind of Greek gods kind of want the same power from the staff and they're gonna get it however they can and plant a tree in Philadelphia that's gonna destroy the world or something.
Wow, you're selling it to me.
That's the story, baby. And yeah, I don't know, man. It
See,
was
that's the
nothing
thing.
was particularly awful. It just wasn't particularly inspiring at the same time. Like just didn't grab me.
That's the thing with Marvel's a completely different story, but when we come to the DC universe, that's the sort of stuff that loses me. Whenever you double down on its self seriousness and the just the elongated fight scenes, that stuff doesn't really grab me. I enjoy like Aquaman, where it's just completely in on its own silliness and it's
Mm.
all up the wall, the bonkers level of it. Um, that's something I can latch on to. I can enjoy it on that level. But whenever you're just, we're turning into, Transformers, but on a human basis, we're having big fights in the city, and the stakes are very by the numbers. That's where you lose me, and I'm less inclined to reach out to grab those DC movies than even I am Marvel at the minute.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, like, it isn't a very serious film.
Hmm.
So maybe that's why, like, tonally it's a bit all over the place with the
It's more
Save the World.
forgivable though too. If it
But
you know if it doesn't take itself so seriously, you're like, well, it was whatever.
yeah, it bashes up against itself a bit because the unserious nature of it mixed with the stakes, mixed with the family stuff, like it's just a little bit all over the place. And at one point turns into a massive advert for Skittles, which is very strange. But I'll
Huh.
let you I'll let you watch and find out with that one.
Advertising, kind of skip it.
It's very interesting. Very interesting, but you guys can discover that for yourself. Wouldn't recommend going to see Shazam in the cinema. Maybe wait for streaming, but it's fine. It's fine.
Very well. Well, that brings us to the BFI Sight and Sound list. The bit I look forward to the most every week talking to you, and we've had a little bit of a gap, obviously, so we have two very big movies to talk about today, very different films.
Mm,
So Jean-Luc Godard, no stranger to anybody who kind of knows their cinema and how influential he was with French New Wave film in the 60s. I'm still kind of a little bit kind of new and sort of in the virgin territory of his work. I've seen Alphaville a couple of years ago when that was featured on Mubi, and I really engaged with that. I thought that was a
mm,
really, really cool way to do a dystopian sort of film noir with a budget and actually no set pieces. So you just really had to use the skill of the camera and the writing. That was a really good movie. We've got Pierrot Le Fou, which is kind of regarded as his like most pop arty film,
mm,
very influential, and kind of doing new things with the camera and with sort of with the way you structure a film. I think this movie is very, probably very meandering. That's the thing that kind of we'll get into that I kind of struggled with it. I enjoyed it for what it was trying to do, but sometimes it's so hard to kind of latch on and kind of wonder what's physical in this world and what is metaphorical. That's where I am at with this movie.
Well, yeah, it might be worth saying as well. I have a little bit more experience with Jean-Luc Godard films.
Hmm.
I've seen about 10 or so of his films because Mubi a few years ago were doing a little marathon of them, and I was just
Yeah.
watching them every week. He was a blind spot at the time for me that I thought, hey, I really need to catch this guy. I hear a lot about him. So I have actually seen Pierrot Le Fou before. Interesting enough, it wasn't one of my favorites of his film, despite the fact that many applaud this as one of his best. So this was a rewatch for me,
Okay.
and I wanted to rewatch it because I thought if we're going to discuss it, Chris, I don't fully remember everything about it, so it'd be very difficult for me to put my two pennies in having not rewatched it. So I wanted to rewatch it. I do wonder if rewatching it meant that I enjoyed it more. I enjoyed it more on a second watch, but I think there's an element of the film where it is quite a difficult film to always understand what's going on.
Hmm.
So when I've seen it before, I already have I know where the story's going. I know the basic outline, and having that before watching it, I think does help because if not, you're thrown into this life of Ferdinand, essentially is his name, who is married and basically is bored with his life. And he is at a party, everybody is talking to each other, and he can't get on board with it. They're talking in advertising terms, they're talking just with strap lines for products. And that kind of introduces this idea of consumerism very
Yes.
much invading French society and invading their life and just really sucking art and life out of life. Does that make sense?
No,
Um,
completely.
he
That's something I latched onto in the early portions of this movie. Completely.
he meets his, I think it's his ex-girlfriend,
Yes, Marianne.
Marianne, at the party and decides to run away with her. But it just turns out that she has killed somebody in her apartment who
Hmm.
is part of a gang, and they are hunting her down. So they basically go on the run together. And the film follows them as they basically explore life together, but they kind of meander about different points and different aspects of life and art and literature and all this kind of stuff. And but I think that is Jean-Luc Godard. He is one to break the norm. He
Oh,
doesn't
sure.
like to follow the rules. He constantly breaks the rules, and he's constantly being creative and almost misleading with a
Hmm.
lot of the stuff he does. Um, it's edited weird. The sound is weird. Like there's so much going on. He's putting in these like creative little arty pieces as he goes,
Sure.
and
And it almost feels like it actually does break out into song at one point.
yeah,
It has that musical aspect to it as well.
he never ceases to surprise you when you least expect it. Now, I would say 30-40 minutes of this film, I was like, damn, I'm really on board with this. I don't know what I didn't like about this film
Yeah.
previously. I'm really into this. And I think it isn't until they kind of blow up a car to hide to make it seem as if they're dead
Yes.
and move on with their lives going forward, that the plot kind of meanders around a bit and doesn't really get anywhere until the end. Um, I'm obviously oversimplifying. A lot happens. A lot is being
Oh, a
said.
lot does happen.
Not
Yeah.
all of it I get, but I don't know. I definitely enjoyed it more a second time, but it's still not my favorite of Jean-Luc Godard. But how did you feel as like more a newcomer to this film and maybe somebody who hasn't seen as many Godard films yet? Because I think there's a few on the Science
No, no, we will
700.
be talking more Godard on this list
We will,
further
we
down the
will.
line.
I love talking about that. He's so interesting. Even though I like, I don't love all his films. They're so interesting. They're so interesting, and they are kind of a breath of fresh air within the cinematic landscape. Don't always get on with them, but like they are very interesting films.
Oh, I mean, like completely. I mean, you can see what Godard's doing. He's completely trying to stretch the boundaries completely as much as he can. He's like an agent of chaos with cinema, but also actually there is real thought put behind these moments. Whether it's even the aesthetic of the movie, I really enjoyed the use of color. The primary colors, so kind of almost kind of red, white, and blue, kind of symbolizing the French flag, kind of going on
Mm,
here.
there's a
Um,
lot of that in Godard films.
yeah, yeah, and just the general pop art aesthetic that he often breathes into, his films. Um, it's kind of influential as well as how it kind of breaks the fourth wall, having the characters kind of stare into the camera. We kind of take that for granted now, but that was kind of exciting, especially when Godard was doing
Mm,
that in the 60s. Yeah, I agree with you. I picked up on the exploration of the consumerism in the early stages of the film, the party where all the bourgeoisie are posing and are one dimensional in their conversations about commercial products and everything. They don't seem to stimulate Ferdinand or interest him at all, which I imagine Ferdinand in these scenes is almost like a stand-in for Godard
mm,
in a way. But yeah, at times the movie is just a little bit beguiling by today's standards. It often became a little bit meandering, like we mentioned, and I find particularly halfway through difficult to distinguish between the real and the metaphorical. I don't think that Godard is interested in realism. It's no secret that he is toying with the audience and trying to push the boundaries. But the tenuous relationship between Ferdinand and Marianne, and what happens when we drop everything that challenges us on a daily basis and try to act out your desires in a world that won't facilitate them. I thought that was kind of interesting. What
mm,
happens if we do try to live on our basic desires and our wants and needs? There's not much room for the existing relationship with Ferdinand's wife and children to kind of bloom enough so that we kind of hate him for leaving it behind. And so by the end of the movie, kind of like Ferdinand, we forget about them. You know,
mm.
they almost feel like almost like a dream that never happened, and now we're in this reality. And then once he gets kind of thrown back and kind of rejected by Marianne at the end of the movie, it's like where do you go now? You've got nothing to kind of go back to. That was really, really interesting to me.
What did you think of our two lead performances, though? Jean-Paul Belmondo and Anna Karenina. Anna Karenina.
Oh, just two of the sexiest people who ever lived. You mean?
Damn, doesn't Jean-Paul Belmondo make you want to take up smoking?
I no no no
No?
no, not even Chinatown or the sexiest film noir movies can do that to me. But I do appreciate the aesthetic for the movie that I'm watching, and he does sell it pretty well. I'll agree.
I
with you on that
I
one.
wanted to do nothing more than to take up smoking whilst watching this.
I'll get one of those like paper water vapor ones that you used to get from like the joke shop or something like that. I can do that. No, I mean I think they're incredible here. I think there is like a real sort of naive, palpable sexual tension between them two.
Mm.
That does seem like a jumping platform for them to kind of go off into the wilderness together, and how these two personalities are so sort of similar in their wildness, but like completely opposed whenever you get down to their inner base desires and what they really, really want. And then whenever they kind of clash together, like anything that's kind of, immediate, when people kind of come together very romantically and in a very cataclysmic way at the beginning, always kind of erupts into something a little bit more icky and hard to navigate. And I think they both do that really well. And by the end of the movie, you're just like, get these two out of the same screen together. It's not meant to be.
Yeah. The it is truly fizzled out. Yeah, no, I think they're both great. Anna Karenina's in a lot of Jean-Luc's films, and
Yes.
she was his wife for a period of that time as well.
Mm-hmm.
He seems like a very difficult person. I don't think I'd want to be married to him.
Oh, really? I haven't read much about his personal life, but was he meant to be very difficult?
Yeah, I mean, you could tell from these films that he has a lot to say. Very political, very opinionated, and quite a difficult guy by all means.
Like all great artists.
Like all great artists. I don't know why I brought this into the conversation, but yeah, I just always think about that and just be like, man, I wonder what this guy was like to be married to. There is a French film that kind of does a bit of a biopic that kind of explores their relationship as well, and just how difficult a person he is. Maybe I'm being colored by that biopic that I
yes,
saw.
I know. That's quite recent, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't think it was that long ago. Like within the past 10 years, definitely.
Sure. I'm pretty middle of the road with this movie. I think it's one of those ones that I can outwardly appreciate, but I had sort of trouble sort of attaching myself emotionally to what's going on. And maybe that's because Jean-Luc Godard is playing with the form a little bit. I might need to get warm up and get used to that. We'll see if it clicks with the next movie, or whether
Which is Contempt, right?
Is that Contempt? Yeah.
And is Breathless on here?
I think Breathless.
Does it make the top 100? Now that's I think Breathless is his first film. That's a very good film. I think you'll very much enjoy Breathless.
Sure. I mean, I've obviously heard about Breathless more than any of his other films. And I know that is really well sort of regarded.
That is Jean-Paul Belmondo again. He plays a very archaic, rebellious character in that one.
Oh,
but again, well, he hasn't for you, but he makes you want to take up smoking.
Okay, well, maybe this time. I'll be with a smoker's cough next time we record. Right.
Yeah, I don't recommend anybody take up smoking, obviously. Just
We're reverting back to like 1940s like radio adverts here where we're trying to like completely sexualize smoking again.
Well, you could he would probably be the poster boy for it. That's all I'm saying.
You know what? I'm with you. He looks good doing it. But I don't look good doing it.
Yeah, neither of us will ever look as good smoking a cigarette as Jean-Paul Belmondo.
All right, well, it wasn't the only BFI movie we caught up with. We did also catch up with Spanish film from Victor Erice, which is The Spirit of the Beehive from 1973. kind of a very influential movie for a particular Spanish filmmaker that we obviously most people will know, especially from winning an Oscar. Guillermo del Toro was very inspired by this movie.
Mm.
It kind of it rippled into his works like The Devil's Backbone and Pan's Labyrinth. And I can completely see why here. This is like a quieter version, a bit more subtle version of Pan's Labyrinth. I can see those threads in here, so particularly with the child perspective, and that's what kind of the movie is about. It's kind of a post Spanish Civil War movie that kind of looks at the inner life of a child and how she perceives the world around her and copes with things around her. She picks up the ripples of the after effects of a relationship that's going wrong between her father and her mother. Her father is very distant. He kind of keeps himself locked up in his study in the big manor that they live in this small Spanish town. And her mother is secretly having this affair with a soldier who has gone off into war, and we basically never see the mother and father ever on the same in the same frame together in the movie.
Mm.
It's like they completely live two separate lives. So it's interesting how it reverberates onto the children. They have two small little girls. There is like a movie cart with a guy who comes around and brings a projector once a week into town, and he shows a movie. And that movie happens to be 1931's Universal monster movie Frankenstein, of
Mm.
which young Anna and her sister go to see with a crowd of people, and she is completely traumatized by this movie, particularly when her older sister is winding her up and kind of twisting the knife and telling her that Frankenstein's monster is real, that she's seen him. He lives in the small sheep house in the middle of a field. I talked to him, and she starts to have these sort of visions or kind of imaginations of the monster that lurks out there, and she tries to go out and seek him. So that's kind of where we are with the movie. There's a lot more obviously going on, but that's kind of the basic thing kind of going on, right?
Yeah, yeah. Had you heard of this film before it came up on the list? Because it's one of those films I had never heard of this
I
one.
had never heard of it either, but like after reading up about it, it's quite a big deal, especially
Yeah,
in Spain. Um, and
because
it was
it does it was made in a time when Spain wasn't really talking about the Civil War and wasn't being political.
Sure, it was during the Francoist sort of rule. It was almost banned. It wasn't banned, but it was like on the cusp of being it. So it was like this really almost like frowned upon movie when it first came out. Francisco Franco, he ruled Spain after the Spanish Civil War. Um, he died in 1975, and that's when the movie was released. So then it was allowed to kind of be distributed out.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. And because it's very it relies heavily on symbolism. A lot of it that probably goes over my head. But it's not to say there's not a good film in here. There's is very very good film, and it has a lot of elements in it. You can definitely see how Del Toro's been influenced by it. That's is pretty glaringly obvious when you watch the film. But the film itself is very much it's like a mix of like Cinema Paradisimo,
Hmm.
Pan's Labyrinth. Um,
I think with that opening title sequence with the score, this sort of that wooden flute sort of playing through the soundtrack at the beginning, it's very almost cinema parody. So and kind of if you could get that feeling of a small village and something childlike, kind of
mm,
going on under the surface.
definitely like exploring these deeper themes through a child's eyes. I think when you told me that you'd seen it, you compared it to Petite Maman.
Oh sure,
You
completely.
know, the two young girls, kind of exploring this world that's a mix of at times fantasy, but is it not fantasy? Is it hallucination and kind of real world traumas going on at the same time? I maybe whacked it on a little too late at night. Uh, it's a
That's
very dreamy film. I
it
don't
is
know if you get
very.
that vibe. It's very it kind of lulled me to sleep in a way. I didn't fall asleep during the film. I don't sleep during film. Yeah, I've never fallen asleep during a film. It's impossible for me to fall asleep. I
Good.
digress. Yeah, it just made me very tired. and just
Sure.
kind of, it was nice though. It was like having this kind of like weird, slightly scary lullaby going
Yeah.
on, you know?
I can completely see why that would happen. I mean, I can kind of hear the soundtrack and see the images in my head right now, and I can completely. I probably would be in the same boat. It's would be an okay movie to fall asleep to. I watched this during the day with a cup of coffee, so I kind of saw it in a completely different way. Yeah, I think it's beautiful though. I think the child performances in this are completely standout. Especially Anna Torrent, who plays Anna. I think there's just something lightning in the bottle about her performance. We were kind of discussing it when we were first chatting about the film, that there's something about her that is completely unaware, like all great childhood performances, completely unaware of what movie she's in, but that only benefits the material even better because there's just something haunting and piercing about her dark eyes. It's kind of like she's carrying the weight of the country that is sort of in mourning in the background, and sort of the spirit of the optimistic youth of Spain is in there too. There's something,
Mm,
even though it's not necessarily nice things happening in the background, there's still this like purveying sort of youthful naivety that kind of is exempt from everything else going on. She exists in her own bubble. But the way that marries in with the movie Frankenstein, it manifests in that way,
yeah.
in the childhood subconscious. And I think with a very memorable scene at the end where she goes missing and everybody in the village is freaking out. They don't know where Anna is. They go searching the woods, the forest. They go in their legions, and she meets Frankenstein's monster by a small pond in the forest in the dead of night. And it's this really like kind of scary but really dreamy and peaceful, sweet little scene. I think it's worth mentioning the thing that she was traumatized by in the Frankenstein movie was the scene with the little girl by the river, and
Yes.
the whole thing with the Frankenstein's monster. He was confused. He misread the situation. She was throwing in flowers into the river, and she was being, greeting him with grace and was being very kind to him. He, engaged with her. He throws in the flowers. We've all seen the scene, and he misinterprets the moment and gets excited and throws the little girl into the river, and she drowns. And how that kind of comes to the end of the movie, where the monster, she meets him and she's only met with kindness, and it's kind of quiet moment between them two, and she wakes up unharmed in the morning and her parents find her. And I think that's a really cool way. It was like a little extra thing the movie didn't have to give you, but I thought it
Mm,
was a really cool way to end it, and that's where I get those kind of Pan's Labyrinth kind of feelings
yeah.
toward it.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I did really enjoy it. But I like watching some of these old films. I whack on the
Oh
projector and get them up on the wall, and these things are nice. Like Pierre Le Fou looks brilliant with all the colors and
yeah.
flashing lights, and I don't know. So I really love the aesthetics of just like French language mixed with like really quirky cinematography. Wins me over. And
Oh yeah.
then with this, it was not obviously nearly as colorful, a lot more kind of grimy, would you
It's
say?
very yellow,
Very yellow,
definitely. Yeah.
very yellow. But yeah, I must say it does require a bit more from you to kind of engage with it, or you could be like me and just be like, "This is really sleepy."
Well, I think, not to tease, but the two movies that we'll be talking about from the BFI list next week
Mm.
are very good on a projector screen. I can I could see you having a nice little sleep to those two.
Oh, I sure did. I can't remember the exact ones.
I
I
think you've
know.
only seen one of these two so far.
Oh, I've still got to catch up with one. Gotcha.
I'm looking after you, buddy.
That's fair. Well, I'm trying to get it all in. I have to get started on another Jean-Luc Godard film slash series, which is his Histoire du Cinéma,
Oh,
which
you're
is
obsessed with this crusade.
here with me
You spent a
now.
hundred. You spent £100.
I did not spend £100 on
you,
it, Jesus.
you dipped out of your savings to buy a used copy of a Jean-Luc Godard documentary series that we could have easily skipped over and nobody would have been any wiser.
Oh, come on, Chris. They're not documentaries, they're video essays.
Oh, sure, right. Okay, sorry, forgive me.
No, I'm really looking forward to it, and then I'll send it to you after we're done. We're all good. I gotta get started on that. So, yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to. At least I get to watch it for free. You took the burden of paying for it,
I'll
so
resell
thank
it.
you.
All right, I'll make a profit. I reckon. Maybe I'll sign it.
Okay, I'm sure it's an investment. Okay, well, I think that about does us for today. We'll make
The
sure
50th episode.
the 50th episode. That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Do we have a cake for this? Should we get a cake?
No, the only kind of celebration is that we are, I think, slightly better than how we started.
I mean, like 1-2% maybe maximum. I think another 5 years and we could be a listenable podcast.
Yeah, don't put people off. All right, this could be their first episode. We are listenable, I swear.
We're nice guys. That's fine. But yeah, that about does us for today. This episode of the Film Angle. Of course, as always, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts from. Please engage with us on our Instagram platforms at the Film Angle and also on TikTok at the Film Angle. But for now, I am Chris.
And I'm Alex.
See you later.